Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips.
You're listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie, and my name is Dr. Leslie Phillips, and I am your host for the next hour. Tonight's topic is actually going to be channeling. I realized that was a topic that we hadn't talked about before on the show, and so it seemed like it might be a really fun topic to talk about. So, what is channeling? Have you ever heard of channeling? So channeling it's basically the practice of somebody being taken over by another spirit. And for the purpose of communication. So if you think about your physical body as though it was a vessel, as though it was a mouthpiece, as though it was a communication device. It's been created by you so that you, the divine spiritual being, can communicate through it, but you can lend it to other entities and allow them to speak through it, and that is the practice of channeling. And I'm sure you've heard about all sorts of examples of this. Anything from the tribal cultures and the witch doctors and the shamans that have their ritual practices, whether it's imbibing hallucinogenic substances or doing trance dancing to allow the spirits to come through and speak through them. There's also a lot of famous psychic mediums who from time to time have channeled entities, some of which have actually given us some great teachings. And there are examples of books that have been written through channeling. So some of the examples that you might have heard of where spiritual information has been delivered through a channel, through a spiritual medium. One of the most famous examples is Jane Roberts. She's dead now, but she channeled an entity called Seth, and she wrote a number of books. The first one was called Seth Speaks, and they are explanations by this being that she was channeling called Seth about the nature of consciousness, about the nature of who we are. And that the information that she brought through is actually very good information. The books are a little bit of a tough read sometimes just because they're written by her husband, and it writes about, everything they did during the day and then the information that was channeled. But anyway, if you've not heard of Jane Roberts and Seth, that's a good one to look up. The books were written in the 1970s. And another more recent example from the 1980s is J.Z. Knight, who channels an entity called Ramtha. And you may have seen her on the movie The Secret. So I believe that she was on that film talking about manifestation and abundance. And Ramtha is supposed to be a being whose last incarnation was in Atlantis, and I guess then achieved enlightenment, but is being channeled through J.Z. Knight to deliver some of his perspective on life, the universe, and everything. And one of my present-day favourites is Abraham Hicks. So this is an entity called Abraham who's channeled through Esther Hicks. And there's a lot of YouTube videos that you can go to and watch. And the main theme, the main spiritual teaching of Abraham Hicks is the vortex. And it really is about how you create your own reality and how to create the life that you want and how to stop creating the life that you don't want, in a nutshell. And there are plenty of other examples. We spoke, I think it was last week or the week before, a little bit about Edgar Cayce when we did the show on Atlantis. You might also describe him as channeling.
Did he actually channel? I didn't think he channeled. I thought it was just a psychic seer.
Well, Edgar Cayce, when he did his readings, was not in his body. That's why they called him the sleeping prophet. He actually used to lie down and, and we'll get into this in a bit later, but was the voice doing the readings Edgar Cayce himself? Was it a higher aspect of Edgar Cayce, or was it another entity? And, I think my information is it was his higher self, but he wasn't doing it in the waking state. So, Corey, when I do my readings, I'm awake, right? And I am channeling myself. I'm channeling my higher self when I do my readings. But he wasn't awake. He had no memory of what he channeled after he'd done it, because the consciousness that belonged to his body personality wasn't present for the readings.
Yeah, I guess that's like me at night. When I sleep, I channel a being as well. But the language that this being speaks sounds a lot like snoring.
So, is channeling real? What's going on? How is this happening? So, my perspective is, yes, it is real. And it really extends all the way from what I was just talking about, which is channeling God or your higher self, to channeling a benevolent being, all the way down to the other level of the scale, where you might be channeling some malevolent being, and the term we use for that is possession. So kind of like Rosemary's Baby. Did you ever see that film, Corey?
Yeah, Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, all those wonderful. And actually, I went to a movie a little while back, and I wanted to go see one movie. I ended up walking into The Grudge, and I really didn't enjoy that.
Is that a film about being possessed?
Yeah, more or less. It wasn't very much fun.
Yeah, no.
I used to enjoy those movies. Don't enjoy them anymore. Too realistic.
And folks, it is a real thing that can happen. These images of Catholic priests with their holy water trying to depossess people, it's a real thing. I've encountered people myself that I've needed to clean out from unpleasant beings. And, you all channel something. Whether it's yourself. And I'll give you an example that I'm sure a lot of you will be able to identify with. Have you ever been doing something? Maybe it's a simple thing like washing the dishes, or talking to your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your partner, and all of a sudden you think, oh my God, I sounded just like my mother. Or, oh my God, I sounded just like my father or my friend or my brother. Well, guess what? You were channeling their energy in that moment. So channeling does not have to be that you are channeling the energy of a spirit, of something that is deceased, of something that doesn't have his own body. Everything and everyone is energy. And you can channel your own energy, you can channel someone else's energy, or you can channel the energy of an out-of-body being. Have you ever had that experience, Corey, where you felt like you were behaving like somebody else?
Oh, yeah. No question about that. Yeah, every once in a while, and I thought it might be age, but it's not age. I mean, I channel my mother and my father once in a while, and something comes out of my mouth, and I go, did I say that, or did somebody else say that? Just weird sensation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some people get very enamored by this idea of, channeling some higher entity. And I always say, you have all the information you could possibly need. You have access to everything that you could possibly need to know through your higher being. And so, a lot of people, the danger of channeling is going on an ego trip. And I've seen a lot of people do this. They start to receive communications and information that seems really smart and really amazing and really fantastic, and then they get caught up in believing that they are special because this information is coming through them. And the big mistake that a lot of people make is not having any discernment. And so, if this is something that you're going to play around with, then, it's something that you really need to be prepared to do. Because, it can go horribly wrong. For example, you need to be really, really grounded. Because whenever you're channeling, you're bringing in high frequency energy. And your body is a lower vibration entity. And so you can end up completely frying your circuits by bringing one of these super high vibration beings through your body if you are not grounded. And, in fact, for example, Jane Roberts, the one who channeled Seth, she died at a quite fairly young age of cancer. And, that is perhaps a side effect of the channeling that she did. Because in order to do it, she would drink a beer. She would drink a beer because it made it easier for her to disassociate from her physical body. And so she wasn't grounded when she was doing it. And the other thing is, you really need to understand what you're doing, and you need to have a level of discernment about the energy that is coming through you. And like I said, a lot of people, they just open wide to the universe. And, think of it this way. It's like you're a doorway. And if you don't know what you're doing, it's like you're opening your doorway at sale time, when the January sales are on, right? And there's a feeding frenzy of beings that can't wait to come in, And so you need a doorman. You need a doorman to discriminate. And that doorman should be you. And to be honest, I would only recommend allowing yourself through that door, or God. But, some people have other ideas. But like I said, if you don't know what you're doing, you can get yourself into dangerous situations and interesting situations. A really great example of this is somebody like David Icke. I don't know how many of you know about David Icke. He has a website, take a look, but he's one of the people who are really into these conspiracy theories, the reptilians and and the Illuminati and all of those conspiracy theories. And I think he used to be a sports reporter many years ago. And when he first started opening up spiritually, he was like an open doorway with all sorts of information just pouring through him. And he became, completely convinced that he had all of this brilliant information, and indiscriminately was going around talking to anyone and everybody about it. And it got him into a lot of trouble. I mean, since he's got older, he's learned a bit more how to handle it, and he's more in control of it. But, it's something to watch out for. Other examples are, do you remember who's the guy who got people to drink Kool-Aid, Corey? Do you remember his name?
Oh, Jones.
Jones. Exactly.
I can't remember his first name. Somebody, David Jones or...
Yeah, or the Branch
John
Davidians.
Jones, yeah.
And all of these guru-type people, they can be they can be channeling, and they can be channeling indiscriminately, and they can seem totally enthralling because of this amazing information coming through them, but they can be on the edge of I don't want to use the word insanity, but
well, it's a good if it fits. I mean,
yeah, if the hat fits, wear it. Exactly. All right, folks, so I'm going to take a quick break, and then after the break I'm going to be taking your questions, or you can phone up and talk to us about your experiences of possession and channeling if you have any. You can also email us at info@drlesliephillips.com. You can phone in and talk to us about channeling and possession and all of those kind of things, or if you have a question about anything of a spiritual nature, anything of a metaphysical nature, or anything in your own life. So if you listen to the show regularly, you'll know how it goes. But if you're new, let me explain. Think of me kind of like an intuitive agony aunt. You can phone up with your problems.
What? An agony aunt?
You know what an agony aunt is?
No, I don't think the listeners will either.
Britishisms.
Yeah, that's one of your Britishisms. Yeah, definitely. You mean what do you call it? I forget her name.
Dr. Laura.
Dr. Laura, or yeah.
Psychic Dr. Laura.
Yeah.
Except I'm not as mean as Dr. Laura. So what's your favourite channeler, Corey?
Well, Esther Hicks, by far,
Yeah.
no question. What I like about Esther is that, and Abraham, is that they give current, relevant information, like on life. They give what you can use and how. One of the things that I heard one on suicide, which is kind of interesting. Now, I'm not professing suicide, but it was a very interesting topic, and Abraham had a lot to say about taking your own life and when and how and why. It was very interesting, and just current information is very cool. I like Esther Hicks. She does a great job. Mm-hmm. She seems very how do I put it? She's really dedicated to what she does.
Yeah.
Her and her husband.
He's dead now.
Yeah.
But she still talks to him.
Well,
they call it croaking, don't they? When you pass away.
Just wait till I go. I'm going to haunt you for the rest of your life.
I don't suppose you will. I have ways of depossessing people away from me if I don't want them around. But I would want you around, Corey, so there you go.
Someone's got to do the dishes.
That's true, yeah. I'm hoping that you'll become a poltergeist at that point so that you can still do the dishes. One of the things I did this afternoon when I was thinking about what to talk about on tonight's show was I was actually reading what one of these skeptics, a skeptic who'd written an article about channeling, to persuade themselves that it wasn't a real thing. And these are some of the things that he said. That if channeling was a real true thing, that these, higher beings, if it was true, then why don't they all bring through the same information? Right, and it took that to mean that, well, then it can't be true. But when you think about all the human beings, we don't all talk about the same information. We're not all interested in the same things. We don't all have the same perspective. Something that I say is true, Corey may say is not true. And, it's a falsehood to believe that if you're a being without a body, that somehow you are party to the ultimate truth of everything. Because it's just like being like we are now, except without bodies, with people at different stages of evolvement. And so I don't think that is a reason to say that channeling is not a real thing. The other thing that the skeptic said was that, well, the channeled information changes with the culture and the times. Well, of course it does. We create our own reality. We create our own reality as individuals. We create our own reality as a group consciousness. So something that was channeled in ancient Egyptian times isn't relevant anymore to life on Earth today or 50 years ago. So I don't think that's a good argument for saying that it's not a real thing either. And of course, what a lot of skeptics will do is they will try to understand on from an intellectual basis, and they're looking for proof. This person was looking for proof, and they said, well, because there's no way to verify information on a different plane of existence, then there's no way to know if channeled information is accurate. But he's approaching it by trying to understand it with his intellect. And you know what? The intellect, it's a fabulous tool, but it's a much lower frequency than any spiritually communicated information.
Just a quick comment on what you were just saying with this person that was a naysayer. Yeah, well, one thing I heard somebody say from a pulpit once, that if you're getting channeled information from beyond in one way, shape, or form, be careful how you act upon it, because if it's your Uncle George who passed away penniless and he starts giving you financial advice from beyond, don't take it.
You know what? That's a really good point, and it's the point I was trying to make before. I meet all sorts of people who think that they are channeling the ultimate truth of reality. But be very careful, folks, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can be very vulnerable to being manipulated by all sorts of beings, and you can end up believing all sorts of information which isn't relevant at all to planet Earth right here, right now. You can end up spending your life being completely distracted by something irrelevant. Actually, as an aside, the other thing this debunker said was, it would verify channeling as a real phenomenon if the person doing the channeling could know something that only the spirit would know. For example, if a person could channel Einstein, and then Einstein being channeled through that person would be able to continue making important physics discoveries. And it reminded me of there's a whole other thing. Well, what did happen to Einstein's spirit? Maybe Einstein isn't interested in doing that. Or maybe Einstein has already created another body and is already doing that, which is actually what the truth is about Einstein. He has created another body and he is continuing. He's alive today in a different body.
Or, maybe he has been channeling, but the person he's been channeling to hasn't been taken seriously because he was a cook in a restaurant somewhere, and all of a sudden he's coming up with theorems.
Or he's a scientist with an ego and an intellect and doesn't even recognize that the help is coming from the stream of consciousness that was Einstein. We are all surrounded by guides. We are all surrounded by spiritual helpers who want to help us to create the best life possible, who want to help us with our life purpose. So somebody who was a physicist today might well have, the stream of energy that was Einstein flowing to them in order to help them. They might not recognize it, they might not call it that, but it's a definite thing.
Yeah, I sort of have a question myself at this point in time, and it's more or less something for you to speak to, let alone a question. But channeling, if you want to look at channeling and really take a serious look, what about authors and books? You channeled the Midas Tree, your book, and Harry Potter was channeled as well.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, again, it's the same thing I said before. Where is the information coming from? So yes, I did channel my book, but my belief about where I channeled it from was that I channeled it from my higher self.
How do you know that, though? How do you know you channeled it? Maybe the listeners, maybe it would help. How do you know you're channeling something or someone?
Okay, let me see if I can answer that question in a very simple way. Like I know, and I choose to consciously not to channel other entities. But if one is trying to be channeled through me, then I know about it. And the way I know about it is that there's certain areas of my body that I start to feel pain in, and they are areas in my energy system that the out-of-body being hooks into. So we've talked on the show about the aura and the chakras. There are other aspects to your energy system, folks, and some of them are great places for out-of-body beings to hook into. One of them is the crown chakra, but there are others too. And so I can tell if something is trying to get in on those aspects of my energy field because I'm really sensitive to it. And I can tell when I'm channeling myself or when I'm channeling God. For me personally, it's, I'm very clairvoyant, so I see and sense a stream of energy that is coming from source, which to me just looks like a very bright sun. And there's a stream of energy that is projecting directly from source through me. And that's what it's like when I'm channeling my higher self. That's my personal, how do I know if I'm channeling myself or something else is trying to come through me?
So how would somebody who's not as aware of their body and their pain thresholds, what are a couple of signs that would be very prevalent if someone were channeling someone?
Okay, this is a big question because I think it could look like a bunch of different things. But for example, I met somebody recently who was channeling, and what that looked like is they were very ungrounded, and they were talking a lot, very, very quickly, and a lot of information really quickly, and it didn't necessarily all make sense and didn't necessarily all fit together. So that might be how somebody who's channeling, and so if you were the one that was happening to, how would you discern that that's what you were doing? It's a difficult question. I mean, and I think sometimes people need a mentor or somebody who's able to observe them and say, hang on a minute, this isn't you, This isn't you. This isn't you speaking here. But, what are the signs that you are being possessed or channeling? If you feel discomfort on the top of your head, if you feel prickling on the top of your head, if you feel discomfort or pain in the back of your neck, if you feel pain and discomfort in the back of your shoulder blades, those are areas of vulnerability for these beings who do not respect the space of another to hook in. And that brings me to, well, how do you discern whether you're working with a benevolent being or an unbenevolent being? And the answer is the benevolent ones will respect your space. They will not come and speak to you unless they are spoken to. They will not come near you unless you invite them to be there. And so if something is coming through you, if you feel like you are accessing information and something is speaking through you and you're not inviting it, or it happens in a random fashion, then that's not necessarily a being with your highest interests at heart. That's more likely a being with an agenda to serve itself. Does that answer your question, Corey?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, definitely.
If the information feels right to you, if there's a level of comfort about it, if it almost feels like it's coming from your own voice, then that's your inner voice. That's you. That's your higher self talking to you. So when your higher self talks to you, it's kind of like a voice inside you that sounds exactly like you do. And that's another way to discern whether it's you talking through you or somebody or something else.
Let's go on to the first question that's come in via email. And this is from Mia. And Mia wants to know, how can I free my body of allergic reactions?
We're going to answer Mia's question in a moment. All right, so Mia, she was asking, how does she rid her body of allergic reactions? Okay, hold on a second. So I'm not going to leave my body and channel the answer, but I am going into an altered state of consciousness, so that I can take a look at Mia's energy and what's going on. So what I'm actually seeing, Mia, is that there is some things going on in your life that you're in denial of, that you don't want to deal with, that are highly irritating to you. And I'm seeing that these things that I'm talking about, you are blinded to them at the moment, so you're not consciously aware of them. So it's something that you just really didn't and do not wish to face. And because you didn't and do not wish to face it and are in denial of it, but it's still there in your body is finding a way to react to it and communicate to you, please deal with this and stop ignoring it. And so let me take a look and see if I can get any information about precisely what kind of thing that is. It's interesting because it's almost like you don't completely want to be grounded into this world. It's almost like you're hovering above the planet. And that's I'm talking metaphorically speaking here. So it's something major, and it feels like control stuff. So it feels like it's something to do with feeling controlled by other people, having controlling people in your life, and feeling powerless to stand up to them. And I would suggest that usually these things start in childhood. And it may not even be something that's necessarily, I was going to say it may not even be something that's necessarily happening now, but I'm seeing that it is, because I'm seeing that, that there's an originating relationship, possibly with your father, that felt like that when you were young, and it set a program of behavior up inside you that you've been continuing to operate from. But what happens is that there's all of this unexpressed emotion and these unexpressed feelings, and you're having to repress yourself and keep yourself small in order to give your power away to make somebody else feel big. And that's what's erupting out of you. You've stored so much of it, it's erupting out of you like Vesuvius. And so the way to shift your reality is to stop, to realize that you're an adult, you can make your own decisions, you don't have to listen to anybody else, you don't have to allow yourself to be controlled by another person. So that's the fundamental issue at the core of the allergies. Do you have another question, Corey?
Yes, I do. Isn't that something? I have another question. And this is from Karen. And Karen asks, my question is whether I should go ahead and put significant effort into the new business partnership.
Karen and a business partnership. Okay. Well, the short answer is yes.
Okay, next question.
Short answer is yes, that looks good. Let's see if I can give you some more information. So the question was, should she put energy into the new business relationship?
Yeah, put significant energy in.
I'm seeing the more energy that you put in, the brighter it gets. And it reminds me of, I think this is a quote from the Bible, and I haven't got it completely right, but it's sort of like, where two or more are gathered. And the inference is that when you have one person, you have a certain amount of energy and power. When you have two people, you have an exponentially more energy and power, right? Because they kind of amplify one another. And I'm seeing that you and your business partner have the potential to amplify one another, and so I'm seeing that there is an alignment there. I'm seeing that the only struggle is, can we keep up with how fast we can possibly go with this? And the key is grounding, and the key is being really focused in the present time, not getting too far ahead of yourselves. Because I'm seeing that there's great potential for this, and there's great vision for it. But remember to really ground yourself in where you are right now. Yes, hold the vision, know where you're going, but don't project yourself ahead of yourself before you get there, if that makes sense to you. Because I'm seeing what that does is it diffuses your energy and diffuses your power. So you want to be in present time and really focus on it, and it looks brilliant.
Okay, that's cool. I have a question from Charlotte, and Charlotte asks, "What is my life? What is my purpose in life?"
That old chestnut. You know, folks, I have this thing I do, which is it's a free card reading. People can go and ask me a question for free, and I've been asked by about 650 people by now, and 45% of them have asked, what's my life purpose? It is the most common question that I get asked. Why am I here? Charlotte, you say, okay, let's take a look. I'm just tuning into Charlotte's energy. Wow. Okay, Charlotte. I can see why you're asking this question, because it looks to me as though you're feeling actually quite lost at the moment. And the reason that you're feeling quite lost at the moment, it's interesting because we were doing a show about channeling, because I'm actually seeing that there's a block. There's a block that is cutting you off from source and cutting you off from your higher self. So you're actually, right now, not really channeling yourself or God. There's something in between you and that energy flow. It's in between you being consciously aware of that energy flow. Okay, so you do have a purpose, it's there, but it's masked from you. And I'm seeing, well, why is it? Programming. It looks like you have some heavy programming about what's possible for you. And again, it looks like it comes from people around you, people that you have been in long-term relationships with, maybe parents, maybe grandparents. I'm seeing actually grandparents as well. It looks like it's something that it goes back in your ancestry. And I'm actually sensing some Eastern European ancestry. So I don't know you, but if I was to guess, and Charlotte isn't really an Eastern European name, but I'm really picking up this strong Eastern European vibration. And it's out of the, working really hard to earn a crust, and the communist type feeling. And it just looks like that through your family generations, there is some heavy programming about people like us and what we can have and what we can do. And so I'm just seeing that that's blocking you from your own information. It's really hard for you to think outside of that box. And so the answer for you to reconnect with your purpose is to stop allowing yourself to be limited by that family programming, which can be easier said than done, but there are ways that you can learn to do it. And if you listen to some of the back copies of these shows, you'll hear me talking about grounding a lot. So there might even be a show on grounding that you can listen to, and that gives you a technique to release and let go. So that's why you're not aware of it. Now, can I give you some information about what it is? Let's take a look and see if I can. Well, you know what? Everyone has two life purposes. There's one that's shared by the entirety of humanity, which one word for it is enlightenment, but it just means becoming consciously aware and operating as spirit through your physical body. And that is one that is in focus right now because that's what I just talked about, unblocking yourself so that your energy can flow through you. And then everyone also has something that's unique to them, something that they came to do or experience. And if I take a look at that, well, it's really interesting because it felt like something that was devotional, something that was of service. But actually what I was seeing was singing. And it looked like singing in a choir. But it looked like singing in a way that helps raise the frequency. Do you know, sometimes when you go and listen to a choir and the hair stands up on the back of your neck, because the music is so beautiful, it's divinely inspired and divinely channeled music, that's coming up. It looks like you have a voice. Looks like you have a beautiful voice, and that voice has the capacity to bring you great joy, raise your vibration, and do the same thing for other people. So, Corey, we've got time for one more quick one.
Well, how do I know it's a quick one?
You don't. I'll make it quick, though.
But here's one. This is from Sue. And Sue, I think she's a little concerned. The way she's written this question isn't very clear in one way. And Sue says, I got my cards read and death in one card. I got it read maybe 5 times, and I'm going to die. Am I going to die?
Well, it sounds like she was getting her tarot cards read, and they pulled out the death card, and then they said, I don't like that, and tried again 5 times and got the same card. Something like that.
Yeah, but a death card doesn't mean death.
No, it doesn't.
In the tarot.
No, it doesn't, and I'll explain about that in a minute. But that can happen, you know, if Spirit is wanting to convey a message to you, and you don't want to hear it, it will just tell you over and over again until you get it. So if that is what happened, it doesn't surprise me. Sometimes I have my own deck of cards that I designed to help people with developing their intuition, and sometimes I pull the same card for days on the run, you know. I know that there's a message that I'm being given. So, all right, and her name is Sue. Well, you know what the death card is all about is transformation. It's about cycles, the ending of one cycle and the beginning of another cycle. It's about change, it's about shift, it's about transformation. And so I'm seeing that that's what the message was. So the answer is, are you going to die? Doesn't look like it to me. But what I am seeing is that you are going through a big, huge transformation, and it looks like a spiritual transformation. it looks like you're one of these people that I was talking about earlier that is... sometimes when people are like a spiritual seeker, and they go and try things out like tarot cards and this, that and the other, and they want answers, they kind of open up to the universe. And like I said, the universe comes rushing in, like the doors are wide open at the sale and there's no doorman at the door. And I'm seeing that to some degree that's what's happened to you, and that there's been an influx of energy and information that's almost overwhelming, and you are not very grounded. And so I'm seeing that, it's a spiritual transformation. But if I could give you 2 tips, one would be get really grounded, and the other would be start being the doorman. And what I mean by that is be in control of how much energy you are bringing through your system. And again, I realise that if you don't know how to do that, you'll be scratching your head going, well, how to do that? And so email me at info@drlesliephillips.com and we can have a chat about it. So info@drlesliephillips.com.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesliephillips.com. That's drlesliephillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. Come back again.